Now, in this section, we'll explore the education system and its functionality in country governance, just because education is very important to the election of great officials in the government. So this is the second principle of government. We call it the system of instruction. You may notice that we're not using the word education, we use the word instruction. Because instruction in Chinese is a broader term than education. Because it involves not just teaching and learning under the school system, but also many other forms of education and training. So essentially, Confucius' system of instruction is said to have crucial implication in the democracy in his political system. So these two principles of government, the imperial democracy and system of instruction, are interconnected, and they form a very healthy ecosystem. So let's have a look. Now, in traditional Chinese culture, the system of instruction involves three elements, three things. They are education, in a very conventional sense, but also religion and election. Now, a very important point, to make here is that in traditional Chinese culture, religion is included in education. It is not simply an independent spiritual practice. In order to understand this, we need to examine the Chinese writing of religion itself. The word religion in Chinese is made up of two separate characters, namely 宗 on the left-hand side and 教 on the right-hand side, as you can see. Now, the character 宗 on the left has three meanings, namely the core, or the most important, and the most honored. So that is 宗. But the character 教 means education or instruction. So if you put these two together, the word religion means the core education, the most important learning, or the most honored instruction. The content of religious education includes quite a few things. For example, moral education, ethical education, and philosophical education. So together with conventional education, which is focused on intellectual training, these two elements form the basis of the system of instruction. Now, the three elements, education, religion, and election, they're in fact all together in the same stream, if you like. Right? So education is one source and religion is the other. And election is the flow. And democracy is the final destination. So our purpose basically is to explain how this mechanism works in detail. Okay, now to understand how the system of instruction leads to democracy through election, let's divide this section into two parts. First of all, we'll briefly describe the education system in ancient China, and then we'll discuss how the election system works. So if you remember, the origin of society from lecture 2, you know that the primary purpose of people is to survive, right? To make sufficient nourishment, let's say. So in order to do that, people need to learn to love others and form harmonious society. This is essential even after people can make their living and satisfy their physical needs, because social stability makes it possible to maintain such sufficiency in material provision and continuity of survival. Therefore, educational system arises to develop people's mind and character. Now, even in ancient China, there was a preschool education, which is usually before the age of 6 or 7. Okay, very similar to our modern system. But what's the purpose? Well, the main purpose of the education during this particular period, very early period, is to establish a good habit and excellent behavior. The good habit which is formed at early age has a benefit because it's going to stay for a lifetime. Further, the person is able to distinguish good and bad. There is a textbook in China called a guideline for being a good person. That is basically it's a children's book. In fact, this particular preschool education was so important that later formal school education is conditional on this. Now, it's going to take an enormous amount of time just to go through that book, Guideline for Being a Good Person. But the main takeaway is that ancient Chinese understood that morality is cultivated from a very early age. The earlier, the better. So, when we look at social problems of young people these days, things like school bullying, materialism, drug addiction, teenage pregnancy, unhealthy lifestyle, etc. Now, many of these issues result from a lacking of good habit. Nature is good, but it's the habit. And it's not, the fault of the young people. They're the ones who are struggling, not us. Well, I'm still young, but the younger people, right? They're the ones who are struggling. The older the children become, the more difficult it is to deal with it without serious confrontation. I think many parents may have the first-hand experience. So that is why the ancient Chinese put considerable effort in the preschool moral education. Now, in this diagram, you can see that in ancient China, the formal education was divided into two major stages. Okay, two major stages. Stage 1 is called the small learning, and that spans from village school to national university education. And the second stage is the great learning, which is related to Imperial University. So what do these people do in the village school? Well, at the village school, there were two major elements in teaching and learning. On the one hand, students enhance their intellectual ability through reading, writing, mathematics, etc. But on the other hand, the students raise their moral standard through the learning of ethical rules, filial piety, fraternal love and respect, loyalty and trust. I remember the Venerable Master Chin Kung once described his personal experience at the village school when he was around 7 and 8 years of age. And he said his father, taught him to pay respect to the shrine for Confucius as the sage's teacher. His father would stand in the front, and the young master stood behind him and follow exactly what his father did. And then his father would ask the teacher to sit by the shrine and personally pay the highest respect to the teacher by prostrating. And the Venerable Master was asked to do the same with him in order to learn to respect his school teacher. Now, what's the point here? Well, the Master said that this type of teaching by doing, we call it teaching by doing. So this type of teaching by doing from the parents was, in fact, very effective because children personally witness the respect from their own parents. They will naturally follow. And on the teacher's side, that's very interesting. On the teacher's side, the only way to repay such honor is to do his job with the utmost sincerity and effort. Also, the teacher will teach by doing as well, from house cleaning, table manner, to the dealing with other people, pretty much everything. The master recorded that he said that only after the good habit was formed could they start academic learning. So you can see that the early school education was also heavily driven by forming of good habit and raising the moral standard. Now moving on to Imperial University. The admission age to Imperial University was from 15 to 20. So students would set their target of life at the university, not only focus on their academic world, but also learn to select friends, social skills, learn from different teachers, and they form their own, independent thinking. They also learn to apply the principle to other subjects, and in order to establish themselves. So, as you can see, that there is in fact a balance, isn't it, between the mental training and moral training. Mental training as in academic performance and study, and moral training as in personal cultivation. And also the assessment is based on both knowledge and personal character.